Tom Campbell here. I and MBT Events hope you like this video. It was made possible by donations from our supporters. If you're one of them, thank you so very much. If you're new to MBT and find something of significant value in our videos, please consider supporting their production through our Patreon account or through a one-time donation. It would be very much appreciated. The links are in the description below. Thank you.
Hello, Tom. Thank you for being here today. We have a question for you from one of your readers, from Roxana. Tom, when he's referring to the afterlife, he's mentioning the database that contains the films of our lives. That's fine, but there's another aspect he never mentions, or at least I never heard of. Those spirits, before reincarnating, are not in the database. They're an energy, and they have a form, a spherical form. Some of them are spirits of light, depending on their consciousness level. There are portals in this world. I would like very much to hear Tom addressing this topic. Portals are surrounded by light spirits, and it's very difficult to approach those areas. Spirits need a soul and matter in our world. Could you discuss these things from your MBT perspective? She has some beautiful metaphors that are her special metaphors, her special way of receiving the information. Could you sort out for her the things that she's mentioned and rearrange it into what MBT would say about it?
Well, I can tell her kind of what I know about it and maybe intertwine, the metaphors that she uses and see where they go. But of course, the key thing here to remember is that people get data streams. People have experiences. Okay, that's the data stream comes to you. Now, the experience isn't necessarily what's in the data stream. The experience is how you interpret that data stream, which changes it quite a bit. Okay, you can only interpret things based on your own experience. As you experience things that are outside of your experience, they are difficult to interpret. And what you will do is you will make up something that, to the best of your ability, describes those things. Okay, and that's just the way it works. Now, that's not something that only happens in non-physical reality. That happens in this reality all the time. You talk, you listen to my words, you'll hear my words, and then you will interpret those words, not necessarily in the way I intend them to be interpreted, but you will interpret them in the way that makes sense to you, in a way that filters them through your own experience base, your own background, your own beliefs, your own fears, your own love. All the things that make you up will be part of how you interpret the data that you receive. Okay, so the first point to make is stay skeptical of everything. And that's one of the reasons you have to stay skeptical of everything, is that you can't tell that you are making things up. It's not an intellectual process that you go, oh, I don't really understand this very well, so I'm going to have to make something up that explains it to me, makes it seem rational to me. It's not in the intellect. All this happens beneath the intellect. So it's at the intuitive level. And typically we don't worry so much about sound and sight as we do about feeling. It's not so much about what we see as what we feel. And then we describe those feelings. Often we describe those feelings in terms of sight and sound, even though that's not really the origin of where they're coming from. They're coming, we get feelings because we can't really turn those things that are unusual for us into objects. They don't fit objects. So they're feelings. But then when we describe them, we tend to make them objects because that's the way our language is. Our language was created and developed to describe things and feelings that we encounter in daily life. So they're all centered around a material viewpoint of reality. We've got nouns that, name everything that we find in our world. And we've got words that explain our emotions that we feel, inside, and the way we feel about all those things and so on. So that's our language. So that's also how we think. We think in terms of language. If you don't have a language, you don't really have a clear process for not only communicating, but you don't have a clear process for thinking either. We think in terms of language. That's why people speaking different languages also kind of see the world differently. They think differently. They interpret things a little differently. All right, so we've heard what the question was, and there's lots of imagery there that is her interpretation of the data that she receives. And that would be true no matter who we're talking to. That's just a fact of life that it's true for all of us. What we see as reality is our interpretation of the data that we receive. And it's limited by our experiences, our fears, what we know, the things we've read, the people we've talked to, all of our experience is what limits them. So she talked about the idea that, first off, the idea that in the database, the films of our lives, she said. Well, it's not a film of our life, and that's a metaphor. I understand that. She knows it's not a film, but that's a metaphor that people use. But it's really not at all like a film. A film is just something you watch. This has so much more detail in it. In a film, you only get to see what's been put on the film. And in this database, you can stop that film and say, oh, what is that actor feeling? Oh, where did those feelings come from? Oh, how did he end up with those feelings? Oh, what's that actor's attitude about the nature of reality? Oh, what's that actor's attitude about, children or anything else you want to come up with? And you've got all this dimension. Where in a film, you just have an actor doing what he does in this particular film. So a film is a decent metaphor because it's, like what we did in our life is there, sort of like a movie. But there's so much more to it than that. It's 1,000 times more rich in the information that it contains than what you could contain in any film. Just a single individual's life would probably have to have 1,000 films to capture, just that one life and all the aspects of it. It would be very difficult. So that was the first metaphor. But okay, the film is good enough. We know what she means, all that data in the past life. All right, and then she talks about spirits. And from what she said, there's a difference. Or she said all the spirits need or want a soul. And that does not, so now she has a spirit and a soul is two different kinds of things. And I don't see it that way. For me, spirit, soul is all one thing. You can even call it mind or consciousness. An individuated unit of consciousness is what we call the soul. We think of ourselves as a body, and our player we think of as our soul. The player is the piece of consciousness that makes all our choices, because we actually are a piece of consciousness, not a human being running around on planet Earth. All that's a virtual reality. Doesn't actually exist. It's just computed. It's not a real thing. It's a computed thing. Now it's real to us because we're in that virtual reality. And anybody who's in a virtual reality that virtual reality seems entirely physical and entirely real. And you have to interact with other people there. You have to interact with the rule set. So, in my viewpoint, our consciousness is what we call soul. That's that part of this that really is alive. It really is real and fundamental. The virtual reality is not fundamental, it's just a created thing. She talks about spirit needs soul. So she thinks soul and spirit
Yeah.
are two different things. It's not matter and soul, but soul and spirit are two different things.
And you're
So
saying they're the
I,
same. Yeah.
I kind of pull those all together and say
Yeah.
they're all of the same thing.
Mhm.
That spirit is just another word that we refer to when we're talking about who we really are. You know,
Yes.
what are we really? Are we really just this what they say meat suit? This flesh and bone in here, and no, that's not who we really are.
Yeah.
That is virtual flesh and virtual bone in a computed reality. That is not fundamentally real. The only thing that's fundamentally real is consciousness. So we say then that we are spirit or we are soul. Basically, that's saying we are consciousness.
Yes.
That's in my world. That's in the MBT world. Okay, I'm telling you the way MBT views things, the way I view things. That's not necessarily the way it is. It's just the way I and MBT view things. Okay,
Yeah.
now, so spirit and soul in my world are basically the same thing. And both of them are consciousness, subsets of consciousness. And those subsets of consciousness log on to an avatar like my body. So my consciousness, that's who I am really, log on to this body. And then I make all the choices for this body. And by making those choices, I learn, I grow, I evolve. I make low entropy choices, I evolve. I make high entropy choices, I de-evolve. So that's kind of, the way I see it. I try to keep it simple and not
Yeah.
have too many components in it. Now, she talks about clusters of spirits, and these spirits center around portals and that sort of
Yes.
thing.
How would you
Now,
describe a portal in MBT terms? I think I know what she means. Oftentimes people have an image or a metaphor of a certain type of portal. Maybe it's a geometric pattern. Maybe it's a focused around white light, something like that. How would you translate that into MBT? And is there a difficulty in accessing? Is that the difficulty in accessing consciousness that some people have, or the
well,
difficulty not the difficulty in traveling in consciousness
you know,
that
the
some people
reason
have?
the reason you end up with portals is because people have the idea that there's here, the physical reality, and then there's there, the non-physical reality. So these are two realities, and in their mind, they make that two different spaces. So they're in the physical space or they're in the non-physical space. And they're two different places, two different spaces. So the way you get from one to the other is through a portal, some kind of connection between the two, you see? So portal then becomes the metaphor for the connection between two different kinds of reality frames, the consciousness frame or the non-physical frame and the physical frame. So that's where portals come from. It's our metaphor for that interface. Actually, there is no interface. It's not that way. Everything is consciousness. This is a virtual reality created by consciousness. You are a piece of consciousness. You live in the realm of consciousness. You're just playing this multiplayer game in order to help yourself grow up and make better choices. So it's all consciousness. And there really isn't portals. A portal is just a metaphor because we have these other metaphors of here and there, two separate planes of existence, or what else do they call them? Dimensions. We're in separate dimensions, but dimensions, planes, all of that is not really the way it is. We are consciousness, and we're always in consciousness. We're also playing the game. It's like when you're playing The Sims, well, you have to abide by the rules of the Sims game. When you play that character, you make the choices, but you don't have to go through a portal to get to The Sims. The Sims character doesn't go through portals and end up standing on your desk. That's not really the way it works. Your consciousness, that's just a virtual reality that's being run for you to have the experiences in. You can have experiences with your Sims character or with your elf or with your barbarian or whoever you might play in some you know multiplayer virtual reality game. So all those things are metaphors because it helps us make sense of our experience. In our experience, sometimes we're here in this thing that we call the physical universe. Sometimes we're there in that place. And then we have our own particular ways that we get from here to there. And we could call those things portals, if you like. Or we could say that I interact with things in this reality, physical universe, and I interact with spirits or souls in that reality. And to get there, I move through a portal. Or if they want to get here, they come through a portal. And then there's a collection of such beings that hang around portals because that's where the action is. That's where the coming and going is. It's sort of like a bridge between two, distant lands. But all of those are metaphors. It's not really like
Of
that.
course. How
We're
does
always
she?
we're always in consciousness.
Yes. How would you advise through her metaphors that she receives this um, guarding, this sense of the portals are guarded and it's difficult to access them, as if it's difficult to go
I
through those portals?
didn't really get the idea that they were guarded from what she said. I got the idea that they were busy in the sense that there were always entities hanging around there because when you do whatever it is you do to go from here to there, in your mind, again,
Yeah.
here and there are both metaphors. There is no here and there. There's just consciousness. But make the metaphor that there's a here and a there. And when you go there, you have experiences. You interact with entities. You have conversations. You do things and see things. And because whenever you go there, there are entities there that you interact with, then you assume that these entities hang around the portals, you see. But that's not really what's going on. It's not that there are portals and entities are hanging around the portals. When you go to these other reality frames, you are still getting a data stream. You are a piece of consciousness, a subset of the larger consciousness system. The larger consciousness system is giving you a data stream that is about some other reality, some reality that you would call from this reality non-physical. And you believe you've gone through a portal because how else would you get from here to there? You need a portal to get from one reality to another in your mind. These again are metaphors. So when you get there and you're getting this data stream, so it's not so much that this is this is the real reality and the physical reality is the fake reality. It's not that. When you're in this virtual reality, you're getting a data stream that defines the virtual reality. When you're not in this reality, when you're in what we call a non-physical reality, you're getting a data stream that describes that reality. Every reality in which you can experience is a virtual reality. If you can have an experience there, you're in a virtual reality. So when you go meet those spirits and those others and have an adventure and talk and exchange information and whatever, that's another virtual reality. You see, it's not the real reality. And this is the dense reality where people are all dense. And that's the rarefied, higher vibration reality where people are whatever, more knowledgeable or grown up. That's not the way it is. Those are metaphors. That's just an interpretation of what we think, because that makes it all seem rational to us. We don't know we're in a virtual reality, so we try to make rational sense out of it. Okay, I do this meditation thing, or I go, cross my legs and smell incense and whatever you do. You have your own ways of getting into non-physical, what we call non-physical realities, and you do that, and you interact with people, and these people are, well, if you think that these people are more advanced and more aware than you are, then you may see them as beings of light, or you may see them as, angels, or you may see them in all sorts of things. If you have a lot of fear and you think, uh-oh, I'm going to another reality and I don't know anything about that reality. What if there's monsters there that eat people like me? Well, then you'll see monsters and you'll see things that want to eat you, because that's a fear you have. You see, so you make these interpretations to make sense out of your experience. So you go there expecting to see, uh, non-physical being, angel kind of things. And so you meet beings and they're just the way you expect them to be. You're getting a data stream that defines an interaction. How you dress that person up in that interaction, whether you make them big or small or hairy or thin or with a cape or with a dress, male, female, all of that is you putting all those things together to make it seem rational to you. If you went there and saw a three-headed chicken dancing, you'd say, that's silly, that's stupid, and you'd throw it out. You say, that's trash. Well, it's trash because it's not what you're expecting. It's not something that you can relate to. It's outside of your experience, and you really don't know what to do with it. So if you see a three-headed chicken that's dancing, you put it aside. You go back and say, well, let's do it again. I must not be in a good spot. Oh, so this time, instead of a three-headed chicken dancing, you get something that is something you can work with, something you can deal with. You get an angel. With or without wings, doesn't matter. You get a guide, you get that sort of thing. You get sometimes the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the beautiful. You get all of that because all of that's in your experience. So you can interpret things as for all of that. So that's kind of how the My Big Toe viewpoint looks at these sorts of things. These are interpretations you make because they're they make the most sense out of the data stream that you're getting for you. Now, if you grew up in a place that never ever had the concept of angels in it, you wouldn't see any angels. How would I address the fact that she finds these places hard to approach? That's what she said. Well, I think that's because they're kind of, I don't know, emotionally, one sees them as kind of sacred spaces, particularly if they think they're going into like the sacred world. This is the place that religions talk about. You're kind of in a heaven kind of space, and you're expecting beings of some power and knowledge, and all of that's a little intimidating. So it's a little difficult to approach. It's difficult because they have all that power that you don't have, and they have all that knowledge that you don't have, and you're feeling kind of small. And you just don't strut in and say, hi, guys, what's happening, bro? That would just not work. Way too informal, way too arrogant, it just couldn't work at all. So you have to approach with care. And you would expect that they would not be particularly that interested in chatting with you because you don't know much, and you're from the dense side of reality that doesn't know anything. So why would they want to talk to you? So you have a little bit of emotional sense to be careful, be super polite, don't be a bother, but try to get the information or the understanding that you're trying to get. And if you're lucky, they will entertain the thought of talking with you and give you some information. If you're not lucky, they'll just kind of turn their backs and you might as well go away because they're busy. They don't want to be bothered. So that'd be one way that a person might interpret it, because that's the way they experience. If they walked into a room and it was full of senior professors, all discussing some philosophical thing, they'd feel the same way. They'd say, oops, better not just barge in here. Let me just be quiet and stand out on the side for a while and listen. I'm not going to barge right in and tell them that my problem is that I lost my cat and could they help me find it? I'm not going to do that. So you have this sense of respect, and that's how then you project. That's the image. That's what you see when you have the sense of respect. So that's why you have these beings. That's why they're beings of light, because what could be more beautiful and knowledgeable than a being of light? And besides, if they were beings of dark, you wouldn't be able to see them. They'd be black on a black background and would be invisible. So you need something that stands out. So a being of light is just a real useful thing. And if they're just light beings, you don't have to worry about whether they're wearing clothes or not, because they're just made out of light. So that solves all those delicate problems of anatomy and all the details that really aren't important. So it's just lots of little reasons that all go together. They're all part of what you are inside. Your beliefs, your attitudes, like I say, your fears, all of that stuff is mixed in there. So there's a little bit of everything in you that helps make and form these images of what it is you see. So the thing is, when you're doing this kind of work, realize that, one, be skeptical of everything. It's not what you see that's important. It's the meaning behind it. You have to read between the lines. It doesn't matter whether it's an angel or a three-headed chicken. That's not the point. What can you learn from it? What's the information you can get? What's the value of it for you? And even if the value is just basking in their magnificent light and it makes you feel good and strong and better, when you come back, you feel happier and more complete.
Yeah.
Well, then that's the value of it. See?
Yeah.
So you say that's the value. And whenever you need that little sense of feeling complete and okay and stable, well, go there and do that, make that connection. And that will be your way of kind of connecting with the deeper part of you. And that's good thing to do. So we come up with descriptions of what it means to us from the data stream. So you are getting a data stream, and almost always that data stream is there for you to learn from it. It's the larger consciousness system sending you a data stream, and it gives you information. It gives you, ideas and feelings, or allows you to have the ideas and feelings that help you grow up. So what you need is just to be aware of a higher realm of existence. Well, there it is. You'll go there and you will find and you will interpret a higher realm of existence. And that's an important lesson. Oh, there is a higher realm of existence because I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
And you see, now that makes it real for you. That makes it more solid because you've been there, you've experienced it. So it's not the details of what you see or feel, it's read between the lines. What does it mean? What do you get from it? What did you learn from that? What can you learn from it? And if you look at it that way, then you won't need so many metaphors. It's not about what's out there. It's about what you can learn from your interaction with what's out there.
I think that's very good advice, and I think your advice on the how to approach what she feels is and what she perceives is difficult to approach those areas is very sound advice. I've run into that before. If you have a very patient, very humble approach, you have a much and step back from yourself. You have very much better chance of
Exactly.
learning something that way.
Exactly.
So
And that's really the point. You see, if you're humble and open, then you are ready to learn. If you're arrogant and full of yourself, you're probably not going to learn much. The only way you learn then if you get hit between the eyes with a 2x4, something really dramatic happens to you, then you might learn a little something. But if you're past that point of being the mule that needs to be switched with the stick, if you're past that point, then you offer humility. You know that you know very little. You're welcome for anything that you could learn, and you're very conscious about your growth and what's there. And you're open to whatever you get, and you're grateful whatever you get. You don't have any demands or anything else. So when you approach that way, then that's a way that you're open for learning. That's the whole point. The whole system is geared to help you learn. So when you enter with an attitude of, I'm willing to learn, then things will open up to you. Things will happen. People will come and talk to you. You'll have, you'll get a much more interesting data stream from the LCS because you're there to learn. Whereas if you're just there exploring, well, it depends on how much you're learning from that exploration. The 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 larger conscious system may just help you explore, show you different things, just to broaden your horizons of what's possible. Or it may think if you're exploring is just kind of random and isn't really open for learning so much as I just want to see some stuff. It's still all about you. Then the system will probably ignore you and you won't get much. So I think that's the idea. Yes, you want to approach with humility, with an open mind, and open for whatever you get, and have no preconceived notions. You might go there, oh, here's a problem I'm working on. I really need help with this problem. But what you get may be about something totally different. So you just need to be open everything. If you go there with a reason, oh, I want to solve this problem. That's why I'm doing this. And your mind's fixed on that, you may come back empty handed because that's really not what the system believes that you have to learn something else first. That's really not the problem. You just think it is. There's another bigger problem by which that other problem would disappear if you got the bigger problem, and the system is going to work on that with you.
well, I think you framed all of her metaphors nicely in light of the MBT theory. Those uh, units of consciousness hanging out before reincarnating again, she has them as spherical forms of light, and she sees different levels of quality of consciousness too. It's all a matter of uh, that those are just consciousness, and that's I think what you're emphasizing, consciousness and learning. And you can place that in any kind of metaphor that you like.
Right. You can make them spherical, things. You can make them square things. You could do anything you want. The shape is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. But because your language requires you to talk about things, then you have to put them in some kind of physical, shape that makes sense to you. Whereas in the more fundamental reality of consciousness, there is no shape. Isn't a thing. It doesn't exist. But it has to exist in your mind, so you put a shape on things. And if you read in a book that they're spherical, then you think, oh, yeah, look, those are the spheres I read in the book about. Because once you read the book, then that becomes a possibility. And, it's that sort of thing. So it's not that what you see is what's there, it's what you see as a metaphor for your interpretation of the data stream you got. So
Now,
that's the way that
yes.
works.
Now, in alternate realities, as in here, there are other virtual realities. There are ones that are different than ours. There are forms. So the question would be then, would you see what's actually there? Would you see again like we interpret we interpret things from our own viewpoint? Would you see what's actually there? Would you see what's your interpretation of what's there? If you saw a being and you dropped into another reality and there was a being there, there are long, colorful robes, and there's this ceremony going on, and you remark, what a beautiful thing that is, and someone turns around like, who are you? What are you really seeing there as far
Well,
as
first of
form and
all,
information?
there is no there. That's the first thing. There is no such thing as there. There is no such, well, what is really there? Well, there is no there. You're getting a data stream. That's there is defined as a data stream. It's just information. You're getting information. You're interpreting that information as there. Okay. Just like if you came into our physical universe. Okay. That's a virtual reality. It's a data stream. You interpret it as a physical universe. So you go into some virtual reality and you interpret it as a celestial space where angels fly and this and that, and something's going on. Or you come into one and who knows, maybe there's a bunch of people standing around a hole or something and you're wondering what they're doing. And one of them turns around and says, oh, who are you? Why are you here? Okay. Well, you're getting data and you're interpreting the data as there. Now you're there and there's things in it. That's your interpretation of the data. So to begin with, there is no there, only your interpretation of the data stream that you get. Now, depending on your own makeup and depending on what kind of data the system is sending to you, the story unfolds. Okay. So the system's character, says, oh, what are you doing here? All right, now you have to come up with some plausible explanation. Oh, I don't know. I just kind of dropped in, and then I was someplace else and I was just here. I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm just observing to see what's going on. What are you folks doing all standing around that hole? And they may say, be gone, and you disappear, or they may say, well, come on over. We'll show you. And then you might get some fear. Oh, what if when I get there, they push me in the hole? Uh-oh, I better run. Or you might say, oh, well, thank you. Let me go look and see what's going on, because you don't have that fear. The whole story that unfolds is an interaction between you, your past experiences, your level of fear, and the data that you're getting. And it's all occurring in consciousness. There is no there. It's all occurring in consciousness. And for the most part, these are single player games. Most out of body is a single player game. So that person that came over and said, well, what are you doing here? That was an NPC. That was a character that the larger conscious system created to go interact with you. And that system could have said something, come over and go, boo, get out of here. You don't belong here. Or it could have had somebody say, oh, we've been waiting for you. Yes, we've been waiting for you to show up. Okay, come. Here's where you need to go. And they take your hand and lead you someplace. It could be any of those things. The larger conscious system is giving you a data stream to help you learn and grow. Depending on who you are and your level of growth and your level of fear, it could turn into a fear test. And just to see whether you're going to jump and run or whether you're going to take the next step and see what's next. And that would tell the system maybe next time what it ought to do and how it should work with you. So that's really what's going on there. There is no there with things and stuff and people in it. It doesn't exist. It's all information. Remember, R equals I, reality equals information. So this is the way consciousness works. So it's you and the larger consciousness system playing a unique game made just for you.
Thank you, Tom, for that. Thank you, Roxana, for the interesting question, and I hope that covered all the MBT bases for your metaphors.
I and MBT Events hope you liked this video. We will continue to post videos for free on my YouTube channel, but please understand, these videos are expensive to produce. They represent many thousands of hours of production and editing, as well as all the necessary audiovisual equipment, computers, and software. If you find something of significant value in our videos, please consider supporting their production through our Patreon account or through a one-time donation. It would be very much appreciated. The links are in the description below. Thank you.